Our next guest has his name freshly engraved on the Stanley Cup, and he started his career with the Columbus Blue Jackets as director of hockey ops, becoming assistant general manager before spending the last 7 seasons with the Colorado Avalanche as assistant GM to Joe Sakic, before being promoted to general manager this summer after helping the Avs to the Stanley Cup. The DFO Rundown is pleased to welcome to the podcast Chris MacFarland. Chris, how you doing?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And so what's this feeling been like, basking in the glow of the Stanley Cup to now turn the page? You have a promotion and a new title, but your sights are set on going and chasing another one.
Yeah, it's been an incredible, last season was incredible, dream come true. It's something that I think everybody in hockey, dreams about, and talking with Joe many times over the years, it's something that you can't describe really until those seconds tick off and the guys got it done. So it was an incredible feeling, and it was a whirlwind. Those next few weeks and days kind of all blended together, but just to see the joy on so many people's faces, and just so proud of our guys and the team and coaches and everything in between. So it was just a great feeling.
And Chris, there was a lot of business to tend to shortly after the fact. It's always amazing seeing the Stanley Cup champs on the draft floor because everyone's just kind of regrouping from the win, yet you're turning the page to the new season, and you took a big business item off of your plate this week with getting Nathan MacKinnon signed to an 8-year, $100.6 million extension. What's the sense of getting that done? Is it just a feel of relief to know that you have a player like McKinnon locked up long-term?
Yeah, I think so. I think, he's a really important player for us, right? He's our number one center. He's one of the top players in the game. He does so much for us. His power, his speed, his pace of play drives so many things for us. So, that was a priority. I think, as you guys can, those are big deals, and they can take time, and we wanted to get it done. I know it's something Nate wanted to get done. It maybe took a little longer than what he wanted to do, but you're just trying to find that sweet spot, right? That the player can be happy, and the club can, try and navigate the salary cap challenges the next few years, and try and keep that, as much of that core together as possible. But, you guys see Nate, how important he is to our lineup, and to have that number one center locked up. And Nate's 27, he's not 31 or 32. I think that was a big part of it, and we know how well he takes care of himself, and hopefully that hopefully there'll be another contract for him after this one's up.
Chris, you mentioned the player being happy, and I've always respected Nathan MacKinnon's honesty. He said, "Hey, I didn't really love having the moniker best value player in the NHL," and so when you were negotiating this, he's now the highest paid player, and probably that might only last till next summer when other renegotiations come. But was that important, like from an optics perspective for you and for him to just have that to kind of show, hey, this is how valuable we see him?
Yeah, Nate could probably speak better to that. I think, this was a challenging one for just to find the sweet spot. I think Pat and Brisson did a great job for Nate, and listen, if this doesn't happen, if Nate doesn't believe in the Avs and want, believing what we can do and his role in that. So I think, what took time was just finding that sweet spot, cap number wise. We have to keep one eye on what we've got coming up in the next few years to try and keep as much core together. But I think the number that we hit on yesterday was fair for both. We're thrilled for Nathan. He earned every cent of that deal, and we're glad that we can focus on hockey, knowing we have such a key piece in place. The center position is so crucial, and to have that one locked up and for the next now really 9 years was really important.
And that's the key. He is still a 6.3 cap hit for this coming season. And
right,
with all the projections, he'll jump up to 12.6, but then in his second year, the cap, there's lots of rumors Frank's been talking about, it might jump up $9 million, right, in that year. When you were doing your estimations, Chris, because it's very, usually the cap goes up every year. Obviously the last few years it's been flat, but how much of this deal was based on the projections of you knowing in a few years the cap will take a significant jump, and that really kind of, you know, clears up your team, especially with Makar and Rantanen and McKinnon and all your more key guys locked up?
Well, I think you're hitting on it, Jason. I think you're bang on. You have to go through those, you know, run it through those lenses, right, and map it out. And next year is going to be a challenge. There's no doubt. It's you know, whether the cap goes to 83.5 or you know, a little bit more than that, you know, I think that's where, you know, the most up-to-date projections are. Obviously, we would love it for it to jump a little bit higher than that, and then hopefully get those you know, bigger chunk increments over the next few years. So that's certainly a big part of the analysis, and you know, hopefully you know, in the next few years that will come to fruition.
Chris, I wanted to talk about your path to the general manager chair. It feels like a long time coming, given the interest that some other teams have had in speaking to you over the last number of years. Does it feel different now being in the chair? And what's the communication process like with Joe? How hands-on will Joe be over the next number of years alongside you?
Well, Joe's the president, so he's going to be, you know, he's going to be involved for sure. He was a huge help with this most recent deal. You know, he's the face of the franchise. You know, number 19 hangs in the rafters. You know, he's a massive resource for us, and I don't think, you know, we work really well together. So you know, I'd be crazy not to tap into that, which I will. We talk hockey every day, so I don't think much will change. You know, on that, obviously being in. Having the dream come true and having one of the GM chairs is an honor. It's something that I've been, you know, dreaming about for a long time, but you know, wasn't in a rush and had lots to learn over the years and learned from, you know, a lot of great people and a lot of great colleagues around the National Hockey League. So it's very humbling and very thankful that you know, for Joe to do this was amazing for me and my family. So it's exciting, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, it's well earned, Chris. You know, you mentioned a lot to learn over the years, and you've had a number of different people to help you along the way. But as you've navigated this process, what's it been like, you know, having eyes on a bunch of different departments and then kind of now overseeing it all? Do you feel like all of the different facets of the game that you've worked in have prepared you for this moment?
I believe so. Frank. I think, you know, starting in Columbus, that was, you know, coming in on the ground floor with an expansion team and getting the opportunity to work with Doug McLean and Bob Strum and Paul Castron and Don Boyd in those early years, and Jimmy Clark and then Scott Housen giving me an opportunity to become an assistant general manager. That was a really big step, and overseeing the minor league operations and doing contracts, and then obviously that first lockout in going back a ways there, you know, with the introduction of the salary cap was something that you know, I was able to add to my toolbox, and was a big piece for me. You know, and then continuing with Yarmo and JD and that's and grabbing on more of the pro scouting role, but being familiar with amateur scouting and the college process, and again, just learning bits and pieces from those guys in a day-to-day setting, and picking the brains of my colleagues around, you know, around the league, guys that had been around and were AGMs and then became GMs, were always so amazing, and to talk to and pick their brains on things, and to watch and see what teams were having success and why, and analyzing that and running it through the lenses, and you know, just thinking and immersing yourself in the day-to-day world of the NHL. It's been incredible, and you know, but all that time was time well spent. So,
Chris, it is a unique story. For those who don't know, you played at Pace University, of course, and then you went on and you started interning in the NHL's office. I think you were working in the NHL production side on the business, and then you, of course, got with the Columbus Blue Jackets 5 or 6 years later after you graduated law school. there's a lot of people out there who don't have the skill to play in the NHL, but obviously you're passionate and want to get into the NHL. What advice do you have for maybe, if you go back to 1993, 94 at Chris MacFarland, and now you look ahead to 2022, 23, you're an NHL GM, one of only 32 in the league. That's a really significant climb, and it wasn't fast, but you took a lot of steps. What advice do you give to people that are maybe like you, just passionate about hockey and are like, hey, I know I can't be there on the ice, but I want to be involved in the game?
Well, it's a great question, Jason, and one that I get asked a lot. There's not a roadmap, right? Like, it's not like you go to college and get a CPA, take accounting classes, take a CPA, and do that. And I knew well enough to know that was true. So I did what probably a lot of people did. I wrote letters, believe it or that was my path back then. There was no email and stuff like that, but people like Lou Lamoriello, Marshall Johnston, Larry Plow. I grew up in New York, so I tapped into those local markets, the late great Al Arbor. These were people that were kind enough to write back and invite me down to their offices and give, I told them I wanted to be a scout, right? That's what I wanted to get really ultimately do. Is I dreamt of being a pro scout and being part of a National Hockey League, operations department as a scout, and could see where it went. And, through the advice of those guys, they were awesome. And that led me to getting an internship on the business side in the NHL, and just to get my foot in the door. And I'd walk down the hall and bother Mr. Brian Burke, and it was through his suggestion to do ultimately what I wanted to do. He felt law school, which should be, on my radar, and that's what I did. And I'm not sure that's the best approach for everyone. It was quite the endeavor, but ultimately the timing of it with the Blue Jackets and Wild entering in as I was, finishing up, it couldn't have worked out better. But without the help of those people, Jason and Frank, just willing to give their time as on a phone call or to invite me down to their offices, it gave me hope. When I was scouting on my own and, in a rudimentary way, and would send them, the thoughts and they would give me feedback, and that kept me going, and it kept my dream alive. So that they were amazing, but that was really key. I think today you've got to find a way to add value, right? Like teams, I'm sure, no different than ours, get letters and emails and resumes all the time, but you've got to find a way to add value to an organization. As much as you appreciate being fans of the game, that's what teams are looking for, is how you can help, and I think there are ways to do that.
I like that, you had a goal. You wanted to be a pro scout, and obviously you reached that goal, and then obviously you pivoted and wanted other ones. How did you learn the scouting game, Chris? What was advice for you? What was your rudimentary entry level into scouting, and what was your approach?
That's a great question. I think I was like everyone else growing up. I knew I wasn't going to be a great player or anything like that. I was a terrible player. I grew up in Rockland County, New York. Grew up loving the Rangers, but we had the Islanders and the Devils, and I just fell in love with the NHL. The 80 Olympic win for the U.S. was a big moment for me that kind of clicked, and just fell in love with the game, and wanted to figure out a way as I was moving along, is how can I take this passion, and probably like you guys, dreamed of the team element and putting things together was something that just blew my mind, really, and something that I gravitated towards. And again, it was just in high school, and how am I going to do this? That was how am I going to figure this out? And honestly, it was those meetings with those people that said, you can do this, you can. And it was put VCRs, Jason. I didn't miss any games that were on in the local metro area. It was taping, it was watching, it was tracking things that I thought, would make sense in a rudimentary way to add value and that sort of thing. and then with people, like I said, I sound like a broken record, but people like Marshall Johnston and Mr. Lamorello and Mr. Arbor, had me over to his house to give me, here's some scouting forms that the Islanders use, and was kind enough to let me send in my stuff. And that just continued on when I was in undergrad, and then eventually the baby steps of getting my foot in the door in the league office. I was on the marketing side initially, in the international marketing side, which I knew nothing about that. But the goal was to try and, sheepishly peek my head down the hall and see what hockey guys were around. And they were great to always lend an ear. So very, very fortunate to have so much help at a young age, really, honestly.
VCRs and letters. I love it. Chris, it's a great reminder for everyone that's trying to break in, to beat down that door, to try and add value. But it's also a good reminder for the people that are in positions of power to be able to find time to lend to those people that are trying to come up and provide some mentoring and guidance. I wanted to ask you to pivot to this year's team. One of the toughest things when you experience a lot of success and win a Stanley Cup is, who do we bring back? Who falls by the wayside? Not everyone can come back from a championship team, unfortunately. And some of those decisions are sort of self-evident when you look at the salary cap and who can make it. But, Nazem Kadri not coming back, Nicolas Aube-Kubel, there's a list of guys. How tough was that process? And especially for a guy like Naz that maybe lingered on the market for a bit this summer, did those conversations, did you entertain those at a certain point this summer to maybe see if you could try and make it work? Absolutely.
We, Naz Kadri had a tremendous 3 years for us, culminated in, last year into an incredible season, regular season and playoffs. He was a big piece for us. He anchored our, one of our top 6 lines. If McKinnon, had to miss a game or two here, he doesn't miss many, but we knew Naz could carry the load as a top guy as well. So he was a big part of what we were about, added to our depth in a significant way, right? That number 2 center hole is a big part of our lineup and our overall depth. And we knew Naz was going to be a UFA, obviously, going into the season. And but yeah, at the end of the year, you want to try and find a way to make it work. You like I said, you look at it through all the lenses, right? This year's cap, and then more, as importantly, if not more importantly, what you've got, next year and the year after that, what's coming. And it became a obviously a big challenge for us to make the math work coming off the year Naz had. So we tried, we certainly, talked to Darren Ferris multiple times along the way, both, leading into free agency and after. And, I think, Naz got a great deal there with Calgary, and he'll be a great piece for them. So he'll be missed here, but that's certainly the challenge of the salary cap puzzle, and with the cap being flat both this year and maybe not as big of a jump as we would have liked next year, certainly, didn't make it easy. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. How do you balance some of the young guys that are pushing for spots? Alex Newhook, I'm sure, wants more opportunity. And you have a guy like Ben Myers that's knocking on the door, with the security of bringing back some guys that were big parts of winning for your team last year. Darren Helm was great in the playoffs. Andrew Cogliano was an important pickup. How do you push and, manage that push and pull with guys that are trying to break in and some guys that have been around for a bit?
It's a good question. I think that's the challenge. I think, in talking with Joe and Jared, and I think at the organizational cycle that we're in, I think earning a lineup spot is a big part of, for the Avalanche now. Alex certainly, played a key role for us. He was a high pick, drafted as a center iceman. It's obvious, we're screaming for, him to grab a bigger piece of that pie. Obviously he's still on an entry level contract. So to see him take a step and try and grab, a bigger slice of the ice time pie in in the middle of the ice would be huge for us. With that said, we can't, his play will dictate that. And we know he's going to be a good player. How fast, he can graduate and perform in the middle of the ice, that'll be up to him, and his play will tell us that. But we're really excited about, that piece. And you mentioned Ben Myers. We liked Ben Myers in college. We went into it, with obviously open, hopeful that we can take a good swing and see. And,
what a win that was for you guys.
It was big. It was big for us because, it potentially gives us, a bottom six piece that can play, and that can play at an AV that, let's face it, we really need this year and next year. And for Ben to realize that and to see that and to believe in himself was a really, really nice pickup for us. And we're really excited to see him here in training camp. And, with that said too, guys, that we have spots, we're clamoring for guys that in that price point silo to make an impact on our team, whether it's, a Martin Kaut, we signed Lucas Sedlak back from the KHL. He has a familiarity with Bednar from, their Cleveland days, and his game evolved in the KHL. And, Anton Bleed came over late in the summer. Helmer and Cogs were, like you said, were big pieces for us. Really, really big especially down the stretch and in the postseason. We want to keep them fresh for that time of year. So there's going to be some good minutes for young legs to be earned, though, to be earned.
One of those spots, of course, is your second line center with the departure of Nazem Kadri. Chris, I'm sure Avs fans want to know when you look at that competition, you got to be excited. Who do you see as the front runners, and what are you hoping to get from your second line C this year?
Yeah, great question, Jason. I think it's going to be something that's going to probably evolve, whether it's through training camp or the early part of the season. It's certainly something that we're excited to see. We understand why people are, looking at that. Naz was such an integral part for us. But I think going in, we feel pretty comfortable, with where it's at now. We know Mikko can do it. We know we can go McKinnon and Rantanen in the middle of the ice, and then JT Compher has anchored our third line for years. He's a really good two-way player, one of our few right-handed shot elements as well. But I think that's where, we're going to look at Newhook in the middle of the ice. He got his feet wet last year, played probably middle six wing for most of the year, but he can play fast. He's got a scoring pedigree in him, so we're going to look at that obviously here early on in camp and probably early on in the preseason. And then I think Evan Rodriguez was was the perfect player for us, to be able to have him trust our organization and sign with us late in the summer. He can play middle, he can play wing. If Alex comes fast, we know Evan can play, third line center. He can play third line wing. He can play second line wing. He's got that elevator ability to go up and down a lineup and plug and play a lot of roles, power play as well. So we think between those players mentioned, that we can certainly, we're excited to see what it looks like anyway. And then bank cap space, and if we have to attack something during the year, we'll attack it at the right time.
Chris, once you win, it's almost like this, this drug a little bit. You're like, oh my goodness, I want to win again. I want that feeling. And, Julien Brisebois talked about the fact that, when you want to repeat, you want to give your guys the best chance to repeat. Last year, you guys made 5 in-season acquisitions from waivers or trades. Do you expect to be similarly busy? Like, do you have that, man, I owe it to our guys after winning once to make sure that we're right there to do it again?
Yeah, well, Julian's the right guy to talk to, and obviously he's done they've done an awesome job there for many, many years. I think last year, Jason, we were navigating the cap, and I think that's something obviously that's not going to change for us. But I think the play of our we got off to a rough, a rough start last year. We weren't clicking probably the first, I don't know, 10, 15 games of the year. And, but then the guys got on a real good run, played real good hockey consistently for a long period of time. And I think in talking with Joe and obviously as we were moving along, the coaches, Joe ultimately felt, and we agreed obviously, that this group earned the trust and earned the right to take a serious kick at it. And we paid a steep price. We paid, 2 top prospects in Drew Hellison and Justin Barron to bring in Josh Manson and McKinnon, and and then move Tyson Jost for Nico Sturm, and the savings on that allowed us to bring in Cogliano as well. So I think our players earned that right. I think that's the best way to put it, to push, as Joe would say, push all the chips into the middle. And that's what we did at the deadline. And, I think it'll be similar probably, hopefully this year. We've got, Georgiev, and, we traded for Georgiev and in net to share with Francouz and see how that goes. We've got a little bit more cap space to start the year with this year. So we want to see, Bo Byram can hopefully, stay healthy. We're really excited about, what he can do. Yeah, I think you guys saw how, when Gerard went down in the round 2, that was a potential big loss for us. And it was a big loss for us. He's such a key puck mover for us. But to see what Bo did and, how he handled himself in a crucial time of the year after missing, the last few months was really impressive and important for us. So that's something we'll obviously watch. But I think, yeah, we hope to be a team that we feel the same as the season moves along, and so many things have to go right. But you got to be mindful of what chips you do have as well, and keep an eye on the future, because those entry level talents are so important too. So it'll be something to watch, that's for sure.
And Chris, we always like to end our interviews with a little bit of rapid fire for fun. The only rule is you have to answer the questions. So here we go. All right. A young Chris MacFarland. Which New York Ranger was the one guy you wanted to meet?
Adam Graves.
Have you met him?
Yeah, I did meet Adam. Yeah, I did at when I was working at the NHL internship. We worked that NHL All-Star game. And I was working in the bowels of the arena and got to shake his hand. So I have met him. Yes. Did you get a picture? I did, actually. Attaboy, as you should. Yeah. I love it. If a fan or like you wanted to approach Chris MacFarland, is email or a letter the best way to get your attention? Either one would work. I think you hit it on the head earlier. I do like to talk to young people trying to get their foot in the door, and it's something that I think is important to do because of all the people that did it for me. I think it's important to do. When you had time to exhale, what is your celebratory beverage of choice? That's a good one. Mick Ultra, probably. Okay. Oh, keeping it tight. I like it. Yeah. What is your guilty pleasure food? Pizza. Do you like pineapple on your pizza? No. I'm from New York. No. Oh, okay. Oh, jeez. Yeah. Nice. So you like a little bit of a thin crust. Okay. I can respect that. Yeah, that's good. If someone's coming to Denver, Colorado, and you're taking them out for dinner, what's the best place to go and why? I'm partial to, I live in by our practice facility, and there's a place called the Parker Garage, which is just a downtown, locally owned mom and pop place, but it's got really, really good, traditional burgers, salmon, whatever, but it's a really good spot, sneaky good spot. What did you do on your day with the cup? We took it locally to the Parker Police Department, took it to our practice facility where we had a bunch of the local youth hockey teams. My little guy plays his youth hockey here, so we felt that was something we wanted to do. And then nothing crazy. We had family and friends in the afternoon and rented a little spot at night. And it's been so hot in Denver, all summer long. And then the next day on, it's been hot. On my day with the Cup, it was 46 degrees.
Oh,
So we got,
I almost melted during the Cup final.
Right? I know it was crazy, but it was an awesome day. So nothing could take away from it, but we did have to tweak some of the outdoor plans that we had.
Oh, geez. Now, Chris, you are now an NHL general manager. So in a fantasy world, if you could be a GM of any other sport, which one and why?
Baseball. I was before hockey grabbed me, with that 80 win and being a New York Ranger guy as a young kid. Before that, and still to this day, the Yankees. Yankees are another guilty pleasure. That's where my fandom comes out. I love the Yankees as all my life, so that would be it.
All right, finally, how many home runs is Aaron Judge going to finish with?
62.
62. I like it. Chris, fantastic stuff, man. Congratulations on just a great career path. I think a real good role model for a lot of people to see. Just stick with it and bide your time, and success comes for those who work hard. Congratulations. Thanks for joining Frank and I on the pod. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It was fun.